Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make a little Easter design, and this is a wirework ring with some bunny ears on it, and they look like this. And here I just have two versions of it, but it's the same basic principle. This is just where you have both ears sticking up like this, and then it'll sit like this on your hand, your finger. Really cute, perfect for Easter. And this one I just flicked one of the ears a little bit to give it a little cute look to it. Obviously you can choose whichever one you want to do. It's the exact same basic principle. So if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. So all we need to make this ring is a bit of wire, and that's what I have here. And in this case I'm working with two different gauges, and these are both just regular round wire, and I've just chosen to work with a silver wire. And the larger gauge here is a 0.8mm, and this is what we're going to use to make the ring band and the shape of the ears. And then this is a 0.4mm, and this is going to be a weaving wire. And then what we'll also just need is a basic selection of some pliers. So let's get our wire out and then let's get started. So to get started making our ring, what we need to do is cut our wire ready. And I've done that here with my 0.8mm, and we need about 40 centimeters of this one. And then also we need a length of a 0.4mm, and we need to cut about 1.5 meters of this. And that's going to be a weaving wire throughout the ring. So we need to cut these lengths. So what we first need to get out is we need to get a 0.8mm wire out here that we already cut ready. Because what we need to do first is actually create the shape of the ears and then the ring band before we start wrapping. So I'm grabbing my length here, and towards the centre of it, but a bit to the side of the centre, is where you want to start, because that's where the ears are going to be. So I'm grabbing then my chain nose pliers. This is what I'm going to work with to create my shapes. And then what you want to just make sure as well is that your wire's free of kinks or bends and that. It's fine if it's a bit curved to it, but you don't want any obvious bends in it, because that's going to then affect the final design as well. So place your wires or your pliers on your wire here, a bit off centre, and then work with the curve, because obviously the ears are going to be a bit rounded on the sides and the ring band as well. So just work with the curve and then press your wire against your pliers like this. So you get a bit of an angle like this, and you can just kind of keep working with this until you're happy. And then the part that bent up here, the longer part that we have left, we need to determine how we want the ears to be, so how large and exactly what shape and that. So if you want them really large, you can obviously go for that. If you don't want them too large, just make sure to not make them too large as well. So just work with the curve that the wire already has, like I said, and you can just exaggerate it a little bit with your finger, like this. Get a nice rounded curve on the side of the ear there. So like that, and then place your pliers back further up that side where you want the top or the tip of the ear to be. And then bend your wire against your pliers again to come back down, just until it can't go any further. So like this, and then you can just go in on the other side and help bend it further down. So it comes back down the other side there, basically towards the first bend that we made. Now you just want to make sure that this side is nicely curved and rounded as well. So just take a bit of time holding your piece so you don't distort the other side, and get a nice rounded curve in there. So once you're happy with the shape of your first ear here, and then that longer end that we're working with to create the shapes is coming back down towards that very first bend that we made, and you want them to be kind of pretty close next to each other. If there's a little bit of a gap, that's fine. So get your pliers again, and then we need to bend the wire back out to get across to create the next ear. So place your pliers so the bend on this side is going to be equal to the first one we made. So they're going to be right next to each other, so the two corners basically bumping against each other. And then bend your wire against your pliers again, like this. And then just maneuver it into place. So something roughly like this. You can see that's your first ear complete now, the shape. And then we need to come across a little bit to where we want the next ear to be placed. And now how far the gap you want in between your ears is actually completely up to you. I like there to not be too much of a gap in between, because obviously you got to make sure as well that it's going to fit on the top of your finger there. So if the gap is too far, they might go too far to the side, plus it might look a bit weird. So I just use my pliers as a guide. So place them in up against that bend that I just did, so that corner, up against there, and then I press the wire there against my pliers again, so that gap in between the ears now is as wide as where I place my pliers. So that's how you want to do that, and then come back up to create the next ear. Make sure you keep with that curve in your wire, just keep working with that. The natural curve, it makes it easier to work with. And then this is where you just want to try and get the two ears even. So now we need to make the point of that other ear. So I'll try and do it against that one to determine how far up I need to place my pliers to get roughly the same size ear. And don't worry if it's not 100% perfect, don't worry too much about it, because no ears are nothing natural is perfect anyway. So don't be too worried about it, but just get them as even as you can. And also if you're doing the bend in one of the ears, it's less important that they're exactly the same, because then obviously the bend will compensate for the unevenness in them. So just place your pliers and then bend your wire against your pliers again, same as all the other times, to come back down. So have your wire come back down the other side of the ear again. Make sure you have a curve on that side to match the other one. So when that comes back down, and place it again towards that first corner on this ear that you did, it's going to look something roughly like this. And then this is where you want to just make sure to adjust anything if you're not completely happy. Have a look at your ears, and if they match, if they don't, adjust it now while you can. So you can kind of undo some of the bends carefully if you're careful about it. Maybe use some nylon jaw pliers as well, and then make sure to replace it exactly where you want it to be. But make sure to get your ears as even as possible to this point. So now that we have the ears ready, what we need to do is then create the ring band. But before we do that, we just need to secure the ears in place, because otherwise you can see the opening down at the bottom of the ears is just going to open up like that. We don't want that to happen. So all I'm going to do is take a piece of scrap wire, just to the 0.4, anything that you have, just something you cut off of a different project. It doesn't need to be anything fancy, because we're just taking this back off again at the end. We're just using it to hold them together. So what I'm just going to do is right here down where the two corners, so the bottom of the ear meets, I'm just going to wrap around the two sides for a bit. And I like to do like a figure of 8 wrap, just so I still have a bit of a space in the middle between the two wires. So just back and forth a couple of times, literally just to hold the shape in place, so that once we start creating the ring band, it's not going to pull the ears out of shape as well. So just a couple of times back and forth. The figure of 8 weave. Nothing fancy, don't worry about the wraps being neat, because this is just temporary. So just roughly something like this, that's fine. And then you can see now you can pull the two wires there, but it's not moving anywhere. So you want to just do that on this and then the other ear as well, so they're nice and secure. So now that I've secured both my ears in place, so that when I pull on the wire here on the sides, they're not going to pull the ears out of shape, we need to then create the ring band now. And to do this, I'm going to get on my ring mandrel. If you don't have a ring mandrel, you can use something like a marker pen. Just make sure it's something that's got the size that you want your ring to be, or roughly around there. But I'm going to use this ring mandrel, and what I suggest you do is you go down a couple of sizes in the ring that you want your size to be. Because what you can have a tendency to do is when you're wrapping the ring band, which I'm going to show you in a bit how to do, you can have a tendency to actually make it larger than what you originally did on your ring mandrel. So it's just a little suggestion. If you feel comfortable just doing it at the size that it needs to be, then that's fine. But I suggest just trying to make it a couple of sizes down. But then what I'm going to do is place my ears onto the ring mandrel, decide what size, and then place my ears. Like I said, I'm going to go down a little bit in size. And then because we wrap these scrap pieces of wire around the ears, we don't have to worry too much about them pulling out of shape. Still be careful obviously, but it should be fine. And then place them on one side of your ring mandrel, and then wrap the ends of your wire here around. So at the back they're crossing over side by side, or they're not crossing over, rather they're going side by side, coming back towards the top here. And then the side that they're on, you want to make sure that they stay on that side, coming across the top of the side of the ears again here, on both sides, just like this. So that this is going to then form your ring band. So the ears, the wire where your ears are sat, is in the middle of these two tails of a 0.8mm wire. So like this. So when you take it off, it looks a little something like this. And now it's going to be a little bit wobbly still, because obviously nothing's fastened yet. The ring band is still loose because it's just one piece of wire. But what we need to do now is then start weaving. We're not going to do anything with these long tails yet because we need to weave first, both one ear and then the ring band. So that's what we're going to start doing now. So to do this, now what we need to do is get out the long length of 0.4mm wire that we cut off in the beginning, and we need to start wrapping one of the ears. Now if you feel if you're not quite sure about it, because it's obviously quite loose here in the ring band, if you don't feel that comfortable working with that, you can always again take another piece of scrap wire and just tie it around temporarily. Though it fastens the ring band a bit more in place, because then once you start weaving there you can just take it off again. But otherwise what we need to do is take one end of that 0.4mm wire, and then we need to attach it to the very top of the ear here. So I'm just working with the one end, just the short end for now. And then I'm going to just wrap it around a couple of times, down through the ear, at the very tip of the ear up there. And then just basically what you want to do is fill out the space, the bare wire right on top of the ear, the very tip there. And use your nails or use some pliers to kind of push your wraps together. Just do it gently because you want to make sure you don't distort the shape of your frame of your ear that you've already done. So a bit like this, and you can push it on your wire as well to make sure you get it in the right place. And just until you come a little bit down on each side of the very tip there of the ear. Because then what we're going to then start doing is your actual weave to fill in the ear. But I'm just attaching it with a short end here because it's a bit easier than using the long end to do that. So just wrapping it around however many times you feel until it's nicely attached right at the tip there. So you now have your 0.4mm wire here, the weaving wire attached to the ears at the very tip, and just that little tail that you just used, just leave that there. I'm not going to get rid of that till the very end because it's quite handy to just keep hold of here. So what we need to do now is for the long end that we have from that same weaving wire, we need to start filling in the ear by doing the wrap that we're going to do, or the weave. So what I'm going to do is right now mine's coming up through the middle of the ear, and then we're basically going to swap over from side to side, doing a kind of a figure of 8 wrap. So imagine you have your two wires here, you're going around one side, and I'm going around each side twice. So around that, down through the middle, around the other side, twice, down through the middle, around twice. And that's the weave that I'm going to do throughout the whole ear here. So I'm coming up through the middle and then changing over to the other side. Now right at the tip here it's going to be a little bit difficult because you obviously don't have much to hold on to, but just take your time to do it, and then wrap around that outside wire on this side, coming up through the middle again twice. So So this was once, and then push, every time you do a wrap, push it up close against the rest of the wraps that you've done, around again, and then up through again. And the way that I like to push my wire through the ear, instead of going back to the end of your wire here, so instead of doing this, finding the end of your wire and then poking it through, you can do that if you're comfortable doing that, that's fine. I find it easier to just do a little gentle bend in the wire and then feed it through like this, and then pull the rest through, because that way it's also less likely you get kinks in your wire because you're gently pulling it through like that, whereas if you use the end you're more likely to get kinks as well. But I'm coming up through the middle again. I've done it twice on this side, we need to go back to the other side now then, and then wrap around that side the exact same way. Make sure the weaves, the wraps are nice and tight. That's going to give a nice consistent look to it. So you just want to keep doing this, building up your weave, filling in the ear basically. And then once I get to about the middle of the ear here, because obviously you can see this is graduated, right now it's graduating outward towards the middle, but what it's going to do is graduate inwards again when we go back towards the bottom of the ear. So once I get to about the middle, I'm going to then show you just how to do that, give you a little tip on how to do that, still keeping a nice consistent weave. So now I've reached about halfway down the ear here, and I've reached the point where it's going to start tapering inwards again. So what we need to do is to make sure you get your weave as nice and tight as possible and even. What you want to do, because obviously if you just continue the same way, what will happen is that when you pull your wire tight to weave with, your wires are going to kind of slide down towards the smaller area, because that's just the nature of physics really. So what we want to do is, to avoid that happening, we need to get into position to make the next wrap. So like this, but then as I'm pulling it tight, instead of just pulling it just like we've been doing, what I want to do is the other side here, so the opposite side that I'm working on, I want to make sure to kind of push all those weaves, all those wraps up with my finger so they stay nice and tight, so that when I pull this tight, it's going to go right where I want it to sit. So I push again, when I pull it tight I push it against the other weaves or the other wraps as well, and then go around again and do the exact same thing. So that's just how you want to make sure that when you're tapering inwards with a weave, is how it's going to be the best way I find to achieve a nice consistent look. And as you can see as well, now I've switched to using the actual end of my 0.4mm wire here, and that is purely because, as you can see, we're filling up the ear and we haven't really got much space left. So it's just easier when you haven't got much space to actually use the end of your wire. So like this, the next wrap, make sure to push the other side down, avoid kinks, just undo them if you can see any happening, and then tight, pull it tight and then push it against. So that's that side, move over to the other side, and it's the exact same principle. So as you're making that wrap on the other side, the opposite side you want to make sure to push down all your wraps on there. So that's how you do this. So keep doing that all the way down till you're reaching the bottom of the ear, and then once you get down there you can undo the temporary wires that you put on there, because that was just to hold the ears in place and keep the shape of them, and then in place of them you just continue the wrap right down to where your wires are coming out to form the ring band. So I've now worked my way all the way down and I filled in the ear, got rid of the scrap piece of wire that I around the bottom there, and just replaced that with the regular weaves that I've been doing throughout. So now this ear is nice and secure. So what now, I've reached the bottom of the ear, so I've basically reached the point where the ring band starts. And now what we're going to do is actually continue using this long piece of 0.4mm wire to continue our weave around the ring band. So right now I'm coming out from the middle of the ear and then across to, like I was going to go around and do another wrap. Instead of that, I'm going to go just underneath this, so ignore this for now, this tail. Just kind of bend it out of the way gently if you can, like that. So I'm going around the back of these two wires. That's going to be the ring band. So what we need to do is go around the back of that, and then we need to start the weave that I'm going to do on here. And this is a different type of weave that I'm going to do on the actual ring band. And like I said, if you feel more comfortable just having a piece of scrap wire around here to begin with at least, then you can do that. But what I'm going to do is then take it back around through the middle of the ring band, all the way, just like this. So I'm coming through the center there. And then now what we need to do is start the actual weave that I'm going to do. And this is a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is first wrap around, if you call the top one, the one towards the top here, the top wire, and then the bottom one is the one down here. So what I'm going to do is just wrap around the bottom one first on its own once. So I'll go in between my wires. You just go in between like this and then pull through. Or you can find the end of your 0.4mm wire, that's completely up to you, what you feel more comfortable doing. So I've done one single wrap just around this bottom wire first. And then I'm pushing that all the way up to where it's coming from the ear, like that. And then I'm going across both wires. So across the top of both, like that, and then back through again. So one wrap around the bottom one here, and then one wrap around both wires of the ring band. And then what we want to do is, instead of coming through and then wrapping around both again, we actually want to come up between the two wires on the ring band. So you might need to use the end of your wire here. You can just gently separate them with your nail. So just hold them a bit. Once you start the weave a bit, you'll get the hang of it and it'll work a lot quicker. We just need to get it started first. So come up between the two wires forming the ring band, like that, and then just around the top wire on its own. So we basically almost made a stepped wrap. So around the bottom one once, around both once, and then around the top one once. So that's basically the weave that we're going to do. So in this case, I now want to go back through the middle, back through the ring band there, to repeat the exact same steps. So again, we need to wrap once around the bottom here. So go in between the wires on my ring band, pull that all the way through, and then push it up, just like that. And then over both wires, and then instead of coming through, you can go straight in between your wires now, like that. That's going to be easier and quicker to do in the long run, but it was just to show you the principle before. So you wrap it around both and then come up between the two, and then just around the top one, and then back through the ring band, and then we're back to the beginning again. So this is basically the wrap that we're going to do. Once around the bottom one, once around both, and once around the top, and then back from the beginning again. And then what you find is the pattern that you can achieve with your weave that you do in here is kind of a nice, a bit of a diagonal one. And it's just, I think it suits this ring really nice, and especially we're going to use it up here as well, but I'm going to show you that later on. But then you just want to continue doing this all the way around your ring band till you reach the other side. And what you might find as you're doing this, as you can almost see a little bit here, they're a little bit apart from each other, so they're not placed exactly on top of each other. Don't worry too much about that, there might be even more spaced apart. Just weave as you go here, and this is what I mean as well, you might want to go down in size, just 1 or 2 sizes on your ring mandrel, because you might end up, as you're weaving this, it might end up a little bit larger, because it might be a little bit out of shape, but as you're weaving it, that will make it then keep its shape as you're moving around. So just move your way all the way around till you reach the other ear over here, and then I'll show you the next step. So I've now kept doing the same weave all the way around the ring band, so I ended up on the other side, and I've gotten as far, as close to the next ear here that we haven't wrapped yet, as I possibly can at the moment. And then you just want to leave this on for now, because what we want to do now is we're going to just use this at the end to finish off with as well. So just leave the rest of this 0.4mm tail on. But what we're going to do now is finish off the other ear, so that's done as well, and then we're almost done with the ring. So what we need to do is get another piece of 0.4mm wire. So this is just a separate piece, so we need a separate piece to wrap this ear. I still have the scrap piece of wire around the bottom of this ear. You can keep that on still if you want to until you wrap most of it and then take it off, or you can take it off now, whatever you feel comfortable with. But then just put them out of the way if you still have them on. Put them towards the bottom there. And then we need this new piece of wire, and we're going to be doing the exact same thing as on the first one. So you want to attach it first right at the tip and then do the same wrap. So you just want to repeat the same step that I already showed you in the other one for this ear until you wrap this whole ear. So both of them are wrapped and you reach the very bottom of this one as well. So I've now finished wrapping the other ear as well. So both ears are done now. So what we have left is the tail of the wire that I used to wrap that ear with that we just did is coming up towards the back here. And then we have the tail of the 0.4mm wire that we did the ring band with. So what we have left to do is kind of weave in the center here as well, in between the ears, just to finish off the piece. So what we need to do is I'm going to go back. I'm just going to leave all my tails on still. I always kind of do that till the end, just because you never know if you might need them. But I'm going to go back to the wire that I used to wrap the ring band with and just kind of put the other one out of the way. And that's wrapping around these two base wires around the ring band down here. I'm going to go back to that and then just continue the wrap a little bit more, because we now have, because we took the other wire off, the temporary one, we now have a bit more space, and we just want that weave from the ring band to continue all the way to the ear so it lies flush against there. So just another couple of goes around, continuing the same weave as the ring band. So I've done that now, so there's no gap between this side of the ear and then the ring band itself. And I've ended up here on the back side. So on the wire, the bare wire is still the tail of the larger wire that we have left going towards this side of the ring. And what I want to do is just wrap a couple of times around that alone, because we have a space going behind the ear here where we only have this single wire. So just to fill it in and still make it blend in, I'm just going to coil around this itself just a couple of times. Enough just to fill in that space with the ear. So a bit like this, and then when we're ready, make sure to push them together still so it's nice and tight. And then when we're ready with that, what I'm going to do is the other wire that we used to wrap the ear with, I just want to kind of get that in the right position to get ready for the next one. So it came up from the back before. I'm just going to put it through the middle there, just so when we continue weaving it doesn't get in the way. Because I'm just going to use this on this side to finish off at the end. I'm going to use this first. So I've just kind of filled in that little space right there. So now go back around again, but come through the ring band. So you're basically going behind all three wires right there in the center, between your ears, and then come all the way down like this. And then we're going to continue the weave that we did in the ring band here to make it all seamless, but obviously now we have three base wires. So the way that we do that is the same way, and here you're going to have to use the end of your wire as well, because you've only got little gaps to get in between. So wrap around the bottom wire on its own first. So that's this one that's sticking out, coming on this side of the ring, of the ears. So just around that, make sure it's in place, so all these wires are set exactly where they need to sit. And then pull that tight, just coming around the back of these three wires, and then that single one, and then you want to go up and wrap around two wires, so the bottom one and the middle one. So as you can see so far, it's the same weave as out here of the ring band. That's the diagonal one. And then what we actually want to do is, I'm just going to pull it back here because I need to come in the end of your wire here up between the bottom two. So that is in between the wires you just wrapped around, the two wires. So again, imagine the same weave that we did on the ring band. We'll pull that tight, and then we'll continue the wrap by going around the top two wires. So that's how we're doing the same wrap but around 3 wires instead of 2. And then finish that one off by only going around the top wire on its own. And just make sure it's pushed nice and tight together. You might want to use your nails, or if you want to use some pliers. So that's the first go. So that's one section, like we did here, just with an extra wire, base wire. So to come back, go down to the bottom again, and then just around the single wire. And like I said, you have to use the end here probably, to just get in between, because there's just enough space for your 0.4mm wire to go through. Now if you find it a bit hard to get through, you can always take your pliers and then use them towards the end and then press through. That's quite often a lot more helpful. And then just pull it all the way through. Just like this, and tighten that. So we go around with the next two. So you can just go down in between like this, because there's an opening, because it's a loose end we have here. So down between them, up between the two you just went over. Like that. Again, if you have to, you can always use your pliers to kind of help force the wire through. So up between them, tighten that nice and tight, and then over the top two wires. Like that, and then just around the single top one. And then that's another go. And we go back through the ring band again. And then just repeat that until you filled out that space right in between the ears, so you can't do any more wraps. And then what we need to do is move to the other side again, and then that's time we're going to finish off these larger gauge wires then. So now that I've finished wrapping right there in the middle, we ended up with that wire that we just used to wrap with on this side, so kind of what's been on the back side. Obviously there is no front or back really, not yet anyway. You can kind of use whatever you want because the sides are pretty much the same. Then what we need to do now, before we just continue wrapping a bit more, is I want to cut these ends down because we actually want to finish them off. So I'm going to get out my flush cutters here, and then what I'm going to do is just do one at a time, one side at a time here, and then I'm going to go in just a bit after the ear, and then I'm going to cut the wire off. And the way that I'm cutting it is, if you can tell the way I'm holding it, is I'm cutting the wire at an angle. So I'm holding it at an angle on the wire. So imagine these two fingers are 2 wires. Then I'm going to, this is like where I've weaved onto the ear or what. The other one I'm going to cut, but instead of cutting it straight across, I'm going to make sure that I cut it at an angle like this. So that's what I'm aiming to do. And so the point goes in towards the inside here. So just do that gently, and rather cut it a bit too long than too short, because you can always cut off more. Well, obviously you can't add any more to it. So cut that down like this now, and then I have an angle on it. So I'm just going to put this in place, and the reason that I put that angle on it is so the transition between this wire to the ring band is less obvious. So just make sure to squeeze it in so it sits nice and tight against the ring band. So like this. And then what I'm going to do is take the wire that we're just using, the weaving wire that's attached on this side, continue wrapping that around this little end we have left of the 0.8mm wire that we just cut off. So just take your time doing it, make sure you catch that wire You don't want to pull it too much out of shape, so just do it gently. Still make your wraps nice and tight. So basically coil now the end of this with your 0.4mm wire. And you want to do it all the way to the end, because that's how we're going to cover up the end of the wire. And when you get there, just do it carefully. Just avoid basically pulling tight at it because it will slip off. But if you just guide your wire in place where you want it to sit, it's going to cover up that end nicely. Because obviously you want to make sure as well that there's nothing that's going to catch or scratch on anything. Especially because it's a ring, you don't want this to, when you take it on and off or wear it, that's going to scratch on your skin. So just do it gently. Place your wire where you want it to go until you've wrapped up the end of this base wire. So once you've done that, you've run out of space to wrap on, you can just leave it there for now, because now we basically need to repeat the same thing on the other side. The only difference is this wire is coming a bit from a different place. So I'm going to just take it out of the way first, and then make sure this base wire sits where I want it to sit. And then again I'm going to grab my cutters, go and do the exact same thing, cut the base wire off here at an angle, like that. So it finishes right after the ear, just like on the other side. And then we're going to use this 0.4mm wire that's on the other side to wrap on this side. The difference is you're now starting from the outside, so on here you need to then go in and use your end to poke through, because you're wrapping towards the outside, moving into the other side of the ear. It's just to fill in this space so we don't have any bare wire. So just again coil it around, just go in the opposite direction. And again, when you tighten this, be careful when you pull it tight here. So rather just kind of guide the wire in place and then fill up this bare space that you have. So once I've filled up that space with my wrapping wire now, we need to get rid of it because we're done using this for now. I'm going to get my flush cutters again, and then where it's coming out from, I'm going to cut it about 1mm, a bit less, just over where it's coming from, so that when I then take my chain nose pliers here and press it against with the direction it was going to go if I were going to do another wrap, I like to press the tip of my chain nose pliers and then kind of roll it in the direction like that. So you just do a little hand flick like this, and that tucks the wire right in there, so the end is completely tucked in, so it's not sticking out or anything, it's not going to catch on anything at all. Now back to this side, we finished on this side, but as you can see this end is wrapped now, this side as well, but we have just a little gap left on this side of bare wire. So I'm going to take this one that we left from the beginning, from before, and then take it across underneath the underside, because this side is finished. So I'm just going to use the same wire so it's more solid piece, and do the same principle that we just did here. Just go down with the point of the wire just to fill in that gap. So one coil at a time. So I've now filled in this gap as well, and then all that's left to do is get rid of this. Same principle, just cut it just a tiny bit above where it's coming out from, like this. And then as if it was going the direction to do another wrap, take your chain nose pliers and press it and do a little hand roll to tuck it in. And then you absolutely cannot feel anything because it's nicely tucked in right there. And there you have the finished ring band as well. We have the little tails left from the ears, if you haven't cut them off already. Same principle, just cut them down in the direction that if you were to do another wrap, just so there's a little tiny bit left, so that when you do your roll with your hand like this, in the direction, it tucks in and you absolutely can't feel anything. And it's not going to come out at any point and scratch or catch on anything. Same thing on the other side. So just finishing off all the ends now. do the roll like that, and there is all your ends finished off. So if you just want to take it that one step further, then all I'm going to do is, this is just a crochet hook that I have. It's quite a small one of the smallest ones I have. You can use anything else that you have, like a mandrel or something, just something that's got a round small shape there, and then place it on one of the ears, whichever one you want to have the little flick on, a bit above the middle, at least to begin with, because then you start bending the tip of it around wherever you're using mandrel crochet hook, just gently, a bit at a time, like that. And then you can decide how much you want to bend. If you want this, you're happy with this, or you can do a bit further down if you want to, and just gradually do that until you're happy with how it looks. And there you have the little flick of the ear. So that's how simple that is, just to make the little flick there. And there you basically have your finished ring. Now if you need to, you can always put it back in your ring mandrel if your ring band has gotten a little bit out of shape while you've been working with it. Just put it on there and then just kind of press it back into the round shape. You can always do that if you need to. But then otherwise, this is your finished bunny ear wirework ring. Perfect for Easter, I thought. Cute little ring. So I really hope that you enjoyed this. You can do it with or without the flick, however you want to. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make an adjustable wirework bird's nest ring. And this is what it looks like. So it's just a little bird's nest on a ring, and adjustable. You can also just make the bird's nest itself if you want to, and just keep it as a nest and use it for other things. You can like